Parents, what horrible moment made you realize there was something wrong with your kid? Back in 2012, I noticed my dog Colby had started acting weird. Colby was 7, always the hyper type, always running to the door when I came home. The kind of dog who'd jump on guests and make a mess just trying to get a little attention. But suddenly, he changed. He was off, kind of nervous, barely wanted to be around people, not even us, his own family. At first, I figured maybe he was just sick or something, but after more than a week, I started to worry. I told my wife we should take him to the vet. She thought I was overreacting, but I went anyway. The vet did his exam and then told me something I never expected to hear. He told me that he suspected the dog had been sodomized due to the damage around his butt. He said he couldn't really imagine that his injuries could have come about any other way. So already, I was pretty upset and sort of freaking out. Who would do this kind of thing to a dog? The only people in the house were me, my wife, and our teenage son. I didn't want to even think it, but I couldn't ignore it either. When I got home, I tried to piece it together. Who else could have gotten to Colby? The yard was fenced, the neighbors mostly kept to themselves, and our son was always home after school. My stomach felt heavy. I went into my son's room and poked around, not really sure what I was looking for. There wasn't anything obvious until I checked his computer. He'd been on some messed up animal forums, stuff nobody should ever look at. I just stood there staring at the screen, not sure what to do next. That night, after my wife went to bed, I sat down with my son. I didn't want to accuse him, but I had to ask. I told him what the vet said, and I asked if he knew what happened to Colby. He got defensive right away, played dumb, acted like he didn't know anything. I brought up what I'd found on his computer, and he just exploded, angry that I'd snooped, but I kept calm. I told him I wouldn't punish him. I just wanted to know the truth. It took a long time. He kept dodging, but after a while, he broke down crying. He admitted it. He said he'd used his fingers and a hairbrush on Colby a week ago. He tried to downplay it. Said he stopped when Colby freaked out. Said he hadn't meant to hurt him. He just looked ashamed. I felt sick, but I didn't yell. I just told him it had to stop and that I'd get him help. We agreed not to tell his mom, at least for now. I told him he needed therapy and made him promise he'd never touch Colby again. The next week, I set up an appointment with a therapist for him. I let her know the basics, but didn't give all the details. My wife didn't know the real reason for therapy. I just said our son was having a hard time. Colby started to bounce back a bit after that. I took him for long walks, spoiled him a little, tried to make him feel safe again. I thought we were moving past it. But then, one morning, I caught my son in the backyard with Colby. He was holding on to Colby in a way that made my blood boil. At first, he acted like it was just a game of tug of war, but I could see what was really going on. I lost it. I pulled him away and sent him to his room. My wife was at work, so I had to sit there and stew all day, not sure what to do next. When she came home, I told her everything. She broke down, called me names, grabbed her purse, and left. She spent the night at her sister's, and I just sat in the living room, feeling like the worst parent alive. The next week was pure hell. My wife and I fought nonstop. She blamed me for not telling her sooner. I said we should find a new home for Colby, but she refused. Then she said she didn't even believe our son did anything to the dog. She talked to him, and he denied everything. So now she was caught between my story and his. And eventually, in the heat of an argument, she accused me of being the one who hurt Colby. Things spiraled from there. After weeks of tension, my wife said she wanted a trial separation. My son went with her. I moved in with a friend and tried to take Colby, but my wife fought me on it, so Colby stayed with them. I called my son, tried to get him to tell the truth, but he ignored me. When I showed up at the house one day to talk, my wife wouldn't even open the door. We ended up screaming at each other on the lawn while my son watched from his window, not saying a word. He looked at me like I was a stranger. A few weeks later, my wife called, sobbing. Colby had bitten my son, hard enough to send him to the hospital for stitches. She didn't know what to do. I did. I told her I was coming over. When I got there, I went straight to my son's room and told him I knew exactly what had happened. I said I was taking Colby, and if he ever went near another animal like that, I'd call the police. He just glared at me, didn't say a word. I leashed up Colby and walked out. My wife stopped me at the door, finally apologizing. We both cried, but I couldn't stay. I needed time, and Colby needed to be somewhere safe. I moved back in with my friend. Colby stuck by me, always at my side. We tried to find a new normal, but nothing felt the same. My wife and I never really patched things up. She ended up going through her own rough times, and my son and I stopped talking for a few years. We both moved on, I guess. Colby passed away a few years later, old age finally catching up to him. I still think about him sometimes and hope he knew I tried to do right by him in the end. My son lives on his own now. We talk sometimes, but never about Colby, never about what happened. My ex and I barely keep in touch. I got a new dog and things are calmer now, but every time I see him wag his tail at the door, I remember everything that went down and how it changed all of us.